Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Jeremy Hyams,
I'm Shane Griffiths, episode 3.
and today, really delighted, really privileged to be able to introduce our guest today, Nick Sturge. And why this is so exciting, I mean, digital Taunton, digital Somerset. What we love is we love entrepreneurs, we love tech, we love businesses that embrace tech, and I think Nick, that you cover all of those spots. So we're really excited, really privileged to have you here.
Well, we're in the presence of greatness. You know, Nick Sturge, MBE, actually considered by quite a few people that I've spoken to as one of the most influential people in tech in the Southwest. You know, you've
fake news.
Possibly fake news, but you know, he's been involved in so many things that it's very exciting to have you on.
And it'd be great if you could introduce yourself. I've got down here, which I'm not going to do you any credit for. I'm sure you're going to be able to do this a lot better. But I've got you founded a technology company which was listed in the early 2000s. You were a co-founder of Engine Shed, which we'd definitely like to get under the skin a bit about in this interview. You were co-founder of Set Squared in Bristol, which I believe was ranked number 1 in the world for quite a few years running. Might have that wrong, but maybe you can let us know about that. And now you're a National Institute of Director Council member. Fantastic, got that right.
Is there anything you don't do, Nick?
A freelance
I bet you're a good
LED.
cook as well, aren't you?
And
bet he's a good
There's a
cook.
few other things to add to the list.
yeah, but enough of me.
I feel
kind of,
like really lazy now all of a sudden.
yeah. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. I'm delighted to be here, and really sorry we couldn't do the in face, because in face is so much better for me. It's all about the people, and it always has been. I trained as I studied as an electronics and computing engineer. Frankly, didn't understand any of it, because I soon realised that people are far more interesting than electrons or bits and bytes. But I've always worked in the technology industry, worked for a multinational semiconductor company, co-founded a technology business that we first listed actually in the 90s, and then to the full list in the 2000s, just as the dot-com bubble was bursting. And that taught me a lot actually about, you know, I hadn't had any training in business, and you kind of follow your nose, you do seat of the pants stuff, and you understand the basics, that the idea of a business is that you make a profit. Not that profit is necessarily the motivator, but your responsibility as a director of a business is to create a profitable business. And then you list on the stock exchange, where suddenly you're chasing a share price, not necessarily the proper fundamentals of the business. So it kind of made me realize that there are other things at play in business, and it's far more complicated. And so I subsequently, after that, I went back and studied for my certificate and then diploma in company direction, to really understand actually how directorship really works. And that was hugely insightful. And I have to say, I didn't co-found the Set Squared incubator. That was started before my time, but I took the Bristol Centre over in about 2006, and grew that to then become number 2 in the world, and then number 1 for a couple of years running. And it was a really interesting journey, and kind of another thing I learned during that was that you've got to focus on the entrepreneur, and not follow a process. And even though, you know, I was working for the University of Bristol, who ran the Bristol Set Squared Centre, where, you know, the host institution might have its own aspirations for whether it's profile or student outcomes or research outcomes or civic university engagement in the local ecosystem, I was given the freedom to operate, to say, well, let's just focus on what's right for the entrepreneurs, regardless of what the host, you know, the landlord, if you like, agenda is, because that way we'll create better outcomes for everybody, and it worked. So, you know, if you're supporting a company and you take them in and you want them to be successful, of course you do. But if actually the business isn't really going to get there, or it's very high risk, it's still worth taking them in and supporting them to help them work out really whether it's viable or not. And of course, that applies to the business and the entrepreneur almost separately. I mean, they're not the same thing, is the point. So we, quite a few of our companies, perhaps 30% over the years I was there, didn't start trading or take investment, but we helped them come to a controlled stop. Now, to me, that's a success, because you're preventing somebody flogging a dead horse, if you like, and coming to a safe stop in a constructive way, so that they can learn from that, and you don't have a failure. And then what I learned from running the incubator is it was as important to have an ecosystem around the incubator that is supportive to entrepreneurs and businesses for all sorts of reasons, which we could go into. And so that was the premise for setting up Engine Shared, which was a home for Set Squared, but took the learnings of that and said, well, what do we need to do to create that really rich environment in the Bristol and Bath cluster? What do we need to stimulate the talent pipeline for the long term? What do we need to do to stimulate the investment, the flow of capital? What are the other things that we need? And we were able to experiment, if you like, with projects and ideas to see how we could make the city a better place. I mean, it was great fun, I think we learned lots of things, and a lot of things we did are kind of are still in play. So I mean, that's the background. For the last year, I've been freelance. I decided to work for myself again.
Brilliant. And how are you finding that?
It's great. I'm loving it mostly. I found the lockdown difficult.
Yeah.
I've relied on the oxygen of people.
Right.
There's a theme here, isn't there?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I do struggle, frankly, with not having those ad hoc, random conversations, even with people that you find annoying. There's always something to get out of the conversation.
Why are you looking at me then?
The point is that if you talk to the people that you're scheduled to talk to and you've chosen to talk to, you risk being in an echo chamber. And of course, that's a big societal problem, actually, geopolitical and everything else. So you've got to have the environments where you speak to somebody, think, well, I've got nothing in common with them, but I'll have a go. I'll have a conversation, and you just don't know what's going to come out of that.
Yeah,
and
very true.
And you also realise that actually you might not get something out of the conversation, but there's as much chance that the other person has. So the networking events, especially where you've got aspiring entrepreneurs or whatever, it's really good fun, but also a responsibility. If you've got a back pocket full of experience, you've got a responsibility to share that.
Yeah. That's interesting.
No, very true.
The businesses you're involved with at the moment as a collaboration on the NED stuff you do, is that predominantly technology businesses, or is it businesses that are maybe not technology but actually have a strong background harnessing technology to make their businesses to make them disruptive, to make them future-proof?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if you go back to where I started, I don't really understand the technology. I'm happy to trust other people who know how to make stuff work. So for me, it's working with the people. So I am working with businesses in the technology space, and also the creative agency side. And what the technology experience for me gives is the language and the understanding of what are the issues for technologists in business. So typical for me is to work with a company where it's somebody who absolutely understands their technology and their market, but probably quite a narrow bit of their market. And what I do, I can help them because I know the journey they've been on, and you can build up some trust with them with the credibility you have and so on, to help them create a better business and help them fulfill their own potential. as well as others. So I'm working with a variety of companies, but mostly technology or engineering in some form or another.
I bet it's been a bit enlightening, hasn't it? I would imagine especially over the last 6 months, to see how these businesses have performed. Now, the stuff that I'm hearing and seeing and witnessing, and I don't know if you've experienced this or in some of them, I'm seeing that a lot of businesses have literally put their foot down on the fast forward button on their strategy plan, and in a short period of time have executed their 3-year plan, 5-year plan. Is that something you've witnessed?
Yes, yeah, and I think it varies between businesses. I think and the stage of business you're at, what the pandemic situation has highlighted a number of things. One is that you might as well go like there's no tomorrow, because there might be no tomorrow. But also that actually anything's possible. How many large corporations would have believed you if you'd said you will be able to move to 100% working from home in a matter of days?
Well, you went through that massively.
6 months and £1 million of consultants fees, and it still wouldn't have worked. Anything is possible. But what it also does is where businesses have suffered because they're connected to industries that have been really slaughtered. And there are lots of knock-on effects. We have a very interconnected economy, and companies have had to really focus on what their business processes are.
That's interesting.
And so that in that respect, it's quite useful. So I think we'll see businesses fail, but we'll also see some businesses becoming far more resilient.
Do you think there's something that I've pondered about, that obviously that we will unfortunately see businesses fail because of the situation and the locking the doors, but I'm conscious about there are maybe new businesses that are forming, or existing businesses that have really got a grip on their processes, their technology, and are rewriting some a new way of doing work in their industry. And one of the things I wonder is the new businesses that come out of this are there's going to be an explosion of really perhaps disruptive, agile businesses, either new or people that have repurposed themselves, which are going to challenge some of the other businesses. I don't know what your thought was on that.
Well, inevitably you do. I mean, any form of shock to a system stimulates new ideas and gives people confidence. Perhaps the danger is, of course, that if in a very stable environment, what you're dealing with, you understand consumer behavior or business, whichever your customer market is, you understand, what technology can do, and you understand the political regime and the environmental, framework that we operate in, and you can design a business and implement it. The danger is now that all those things are changing. For the government, on a sixpence spin from net zero climate, whatever terminology, from 2050 to 2030 or whatever. I've lost track of the announcements. But that kind of rapid, massive change means that it's very difficult to design a business. Because you if you're designing and starting a business now, you kind of the risk is that you base it on a set of assumptions that actually aren't valid. So I think you need to be more careful now. But what it does mean is you probably create more if you get past the first 12 months, probably you've probably got a far more resilient and sustainable business than perhaps in previous times when everything was nice and stable. You could create an inefficient business and get away with it. I don't think you can. But it does mean that there may be some false assumptions that get made a bit too quickly.
So look, we can't have you on our show and not use this opportunity to pick your brains, right?
Okay, cool.
That's what it's here for. This is free consultancy wrapped up in a podcast.
So, you've obviously you've got a wealth of experience with the engine shed and getting that up off the ground. And as you'll probably be aware, no doubt, that Taunton is on the cusp of creating a digital innovation centre. So I suppose the question is really what advice would you give to the stakeholders right at this really embryonic stage? Because I think this is probably one of the most important times, because getting this part wrong is potentially failure throughout its life, right? So what advice could you give the stakeholders? And we'll be taking a note with a pad and pen, actually.
So I guess it depends a little bit on what you mean by stakeholders there.
Yeah.
So I would say, so where the council are currently at is that they are, they've got architects involved. They've kind of got a design of the building. They've been working with Digital Taunton, and reaching out to our community as to what we feel the needs are for a building, such as something that you could actually define as an innovation centre and not just a bit
of real estate.
serviced offices.
Yeah. So this is my chapter of the book that I will write at some point on stakeholder management. So the relationship you have with stakeholders of whatever form, especially if they're funding something, is complex, and there's not really a blueprint for it, I think, other than to maintain a trusted relationship, but not necessarily too comfortable, because I've worked with a number of different local authorities. Some are better than others in terms of dynamics and understanding and trust. And I think we've got a UK, and it may well be the case elsewhere, of a fundamental distrust between public sector and private sector, and it works both ways. And a lot of what I've done is to try and translate across those boundaries. But the important thing is for you to have confidence in yourselves and what you know about your softer stakeholders, i.e. the community. Yeah. And in some respects, the economy is as a nebulous thing. The economy is your stakeholder, because you have an interest in supporting people and businesses. But actually, the common purpose is actually you all want to create a better economy where everybody gains. Yeah. And the young people in parts of Taunton or Somerset that can currently feel excluded from the sector, that opportunities arise for them to come into the sector, which helps businesses grow with a more diverse talent workforce. And of course, from the council's point of view, their motivation, they might not always articulate it as this, will be economic success. So actually, it's your common purpose. So it's easy to get into this narrative with conversation with the council, whoever, about actually what do we need? Well, we need a return on investment of this many pounds in this many years, and lose sight of actually what the common objective is, because there is monetary value to a local authority of economic activity. Yep. Right. But it often comes out of a different pot. Now,
I guess it's hard. It's hard to see the tangibles. I suppose you have to have a bit of faith.
Yeah. So I think that the trick to any partnership is looking a bit above and saying, what's our common objective, and keep coming back to that, and it helps neutralize some of the disagreements. Yeah. It's never as easy as that, but I think it's a useful technique. The other thing is, and you have to judge on a personal level as to what you can get away with, but just get on and do it. And I think you're doing this already, because you've built up a significant network and momentum of meetup, if you like. Yeah. And that is hugely valuable. And share the load amongst your community. So it's not just one or two of you talking the same thing. it's a multitude, and actually that becomes a force that can't be reckoned with. So it's about momentum, you know. And I'll be candid. I know this is going public, but if you're in the public sector and you see this momentum of activity and it's all positive, it takes a very bold politician or council officer to stop it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting.
And you know, there's a power relationship there. Don't abuse it, but again, focus on the common purpose and move at pace towards that, and you'll almost certainly end up in the right place.
No, that's really interesting.
Very useful.
And you know, with the engine shed, you know, it from what it looks like on the outside, from what I see, was an incredibly successful project. You know, it's a place that has a vibrant community. It's buzzing with activity, and I'm just wondering, you know, did a lot of that community, the heartbeat and the soul of the place, did that just kind of happen by accident, or do you feel it was curated and considered?
So I mean, it's fascinating, and I don't know all the answers to that, but because the key thing is how did it happen? I'll come back to that. You know, what it is now and what it has been since early on. It is a vibrant place, and I think you know, you ask most people who worked with me, I was the grumpy old sod in the corner. Really, the vibrancy doesn't come from me; it comes from the people who engage with the space. So it's down to them, whether it's the tech sparks or the people in the startups who are there, or the other actors who were involved, or the people that I recruited to. A whole mix of things created that vibrancy. How did that happen? Well, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It kind of happened overnight as we opened the front door. But, I told you I'd spent 10 years 8 years before that running the Set Squared Centre. And I didn't really know that I was doing this, but I was building up a very strong, trusted network in the city region. So a lot of people believed in what I was doing, because I was just, I was running this incubator to help startups and engaging people, because frankly, it's easy to get other people to do the intelligent stuff, because I don't understand stuff. I just do stuff. So you get wise people who've run businesses, to come in and give advice, mentor or coach other entrepreneurs, and you run workshops and you run panels and stuff. And in the process, you're building up. And what I was also doing was being very generous with sharing learnings and not being sharp-elbowed, if you like. And that built up a very strong following. So what that gave me then was kind of the permission or the leeway to experiment and make bold claims. We'll do this. We'll do that, and people then did it.
Yeah, awesome.
So hugely serendipitous and immensely lucky to have had people around, and the university who gave me the freedom and the kind of firepower to do that. But it was a point in time. But I hope that it is learned from, and it's going to be the topic of my book when it comes out.
Oh, brilliant. We'll get you back on to promote it.
So I mean, it's difficult to know, and I still haven't fully analysed it. But also, I think part of what it was there was no strategy. If there was a strategy, it was a strategy to be agile and to listen and to do the stuff that felt right at the time, and that moves you forward. And of course, that's an entrepreneurial way of going. And when I sit down with a company and say, well, you've got to work out a strategy, it's a bit challenging. But things you need horses for courses.
Do you just one thing I just wanted to pick up on? Do you think that the way in which you partnered or integrated with the university, did that play a key role in its success, do you think?
Massively,
Right.
and on a number of levels. So in practical terms, I was employed by the university. I was an employee of the university
Right. Okay.
in running Set Squared, and I
That's
just
interesting.
built. I mean, I'll also be candid about this. The university suddenly said I couldn't have the space I was using on the university precinct, so I had to find somewhere else. They didn't go and find me somewhere else. They said, well, you can't use this space anymore. It's a bit odd to an employee.
Yeah.
But anyway, I could have either walked away.
That's being done, I think, all throughout this year.
Pretty much. Yeah. Go find some space to work.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, either go home or go large. So that forced some thinking that I'd been, percolating for a while. And so we had to do it, but the university gave me the freedom to do that, and took on this listed building, Brunel's iconic building. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the university. So the council wouldn't have entered into a relationship with me, because it was a university council relationship with a commercial and deal and a collaboration. Very entrepreneurial, kind of unique deal. You wouldn't be able to do that now, probably. But what it also meant, so that was the practical bit. The more subtle thing was the university and the council hadn't done much collaboration together.
Right.
So I was able to use this flag of convenience, if you like, of both the council and the university. And then what I did, because it wasn't just a university thing, what I could also do then is bring in, albeit on a kind of low friction basis, the other three universities in West of England, Bath, UE, Bath Spa. So they're all partners. So they put their flags on the wall, if you like, and that then made this massive statement that the universities were collaborating on this. Now, it was
that must have been quite powerful
light touch
statement.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
But what that did was to set a tone that, well, if the universities can collaborate, so can we. So if the local authorities from the West of England, who occasionally bicker, actually they started coming together. The economic development officers of the local authorities, all members of the LET, used to meet up in the space, which of course was good, and they felt safe because it was a neutral space. It wasn't a Bristol City Council, or it's a safe, neutral space. And of course, them meeting then also encouraged other ideas to happen and other conversations, because they'd meet in the business lounge and talk to other people. So it'd be just, I think that neutrality of space and asserting a principle and an ethos of partnership really encouraged others to be collaborative. So, I think that was hugely powerful. And I fell on that by accident, really. It just felt the logical thing to do. Why fight for your own, fight on your own? Let's work together to make a big difference.
That is quite entrepreneurial, though, isn't it? Just finding it by accident.
And I like the idea that, of, strategy is important, right? But sometimes there could be an argument to be made that a strategy can slow you down or hold you back or stop you from creatively exploring different routes.
Here's the thing, what I think of strategy. I think it is important because, like you say, sometimes you've got to have your strategy, and actually it's probably quite important, I think, to write. This is where you can maybe tell me that I'm wrong, but I think it's quite important to write it down. But equally, I think you should not be afraid to alter your strategy, right? But if you've got it written down, then if you're stepping away from it, at least you understand you're stepping away from it.
That makes sense.
I think that is a critical point, because the value of having a strategy that you, especially when they're a group of you, whether it's a founding team or whatever, that you can say, well, that we've agreed this is where we're going, and then when you get a decision point, well, you could do something a bit different, or as an aside, you've got a reference point. Well, no, actually, we decided on that, so let's stick to it. So it could be a useful discipline.
But the idea that the way you describe all these different sort of players coming together, that almost when you've got that many people coming together, that the success of it was almost kind of it writes itself, right? When you've got, so the hard work is establishing the killer team to make it happen. But once you've got that team, success is almost inevitable, right? That if you build it in that way, they will definitely come, and people will come.
As long as you stick to the right principles. Mm-hmm. So it becomes, values driven, and quite frequently I would have a kind of a challenging decision I need to make. And it would be, what's the right thing to do here?
Yep.
Even if it's not the easiest, what's the right thing to do? So yes, it kind of writes itself, but you get the right people kind of moving in the right direction. But sometimes you need to do the parental thing of saying, no, actually, we should be doing it this way. Mm-hmm. The other kind of comment I'd make on strategy is that if we developed a strategy, then there may have been engine sheds all over the country.
Right.
Yeah. So it probably held us back in some respect, but whether that's the right or wrong thing to do, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm a lazy bugger.
I can't believe that, looking at your profile.
Well, you put the hours in, but I can rarely be bothered to work things out. I'll do half a design and then try and build it.
Yeah.
So
it's not a bad thing.
Nick, a slightly different subject, but you did touch on it ever so slightly, and I expect you have a wealth of experience around this. And it's interesting, right? So it's around the diversity you mentioned about driving diversity, which is fascinating, because here we are, three white middle-aged men all in a room, and not including our producer Glenn, who's
slightly
white,
younger than
middle-aged,
but
and we're really conscious about that, right? We're really, especially when we're putting on our shows, we're really conscious about getting a mixed, diverse people up and giving them a place, help facilitate what they're doing. But do you think, in your opinion, it's a question of getting businesses just to challenge themselves, or do you think it's more deep rooted than that, and it goes back to maybe stepping back a bit in terms of what's happening in colleges, universities, or even a bit before that?
There's a whole load of issues. I think the most important thing is that business owners, business leaders understand the fact that having a diverse workforce, whether it's diverse perspectives around your board table, giving you different perceptions, and whether those perceptions are derived from cultural difference, gender difference, socioeconomic, ethnic, geographic, you want different perspectives to help you make the right decision. But also at the product creation or service creation or every level in the business, having more diversity is more likely to lead to a more profitable and productive business.
Right.
So if you think of it like that and say, actually, it's a business imperative to have a diverse workforce, it's far easier to get businesses to become more diverse in their workforce, rather than, you should have a proportion of women on your board, which, it's still not as simple as that, because you need to understand the value of role models and demonstrating that it's a fair and equitable working environment and business environment, so that everybody gets it's partly about everybody has a chance to achieve, but it's also about it comes back to this common purpose thing, doesn't it? If everyone is able to fulfill their potential, everybody gains. So if you're a business growing, recruiting rapidly, and you're developing products to sell in a global marketplace, why wouldn't you want people from different cultural backgrounds designing those those products.
Definitely.
And in the process, you'll create it. If you think like that, you'll think about what are your recruitment processes, what are your nurturing environment within the workforce. Are you setting the right leadership symbols at board level to say to this, apprentice that you've just brought in, who is different looks or sounds or is different from everybody else in the workforce, that actually we value you, and because you could be up at this level, you're going to get more out of that person if you create that environment. So it's about win-win, and I don't think that is fully understood. Yeah. Or even if it is, it's well, how do I do that? So businesses need to understand that, and then it'll be easier for universities and colleges to do better at it, because there'll be greater demand. I in my work in Cheltenham at the moment, talking to a US corporate who is kind of looking where to invest further in the UK. And they're less interested in Cheltenham than in some of the bigger cities, because it's easier for them to recruit diverse people. So actually diversity is seen as a positive by some businesses, rather than a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, rather than having a fair and equitable working environment. So it is win-win. Now it's easy for me to say that, but that's where we need to get to. But of course, different people who are different, but as likely to need different different support, different mechanisms, whether it's language, whether it's cultural, etc. Because so the work environment needs to adapt physically, socially, which is it's not an easy thing to do, but if we focus on what our common goal is, then we'll be okay.
No, that's and I like the way you keep going back to that, and almost in every scenario, it's about going back to that common goal. And I think one of the driving things going through this pandemic is kind of understanding your purpose, right? And I think maybe that's why people have got things done a lot faster, because actually everyone's got a common purpose now.
Yeah, because again, sometimes some things you just can't work out, and you have a guttural, well, it's right. I can't justify it, but it's right, and that is a bit dangerous. But you need to find the balance. But believe in yourself, and of course that's what entrepreneurial behavior is. This is the right thing to do, and you'll get there. It's like, I have this analogy of when you're teaching a child to ride a bicycle, you've got two approaches. You either say, right, okay, here are the handlebars, put your hands on the handlebars, and you put your feet on these two pedals, and you move one foot forward and down, and you focus on that. Or you say, see that ice cream van over there? That's where we're going.
If you want an ice cream, you gotta go for it.
And that's what we do, because what happens, you see, is that if you try and focus on what your hands and your feet are doing, it's difficult to describe. But also, you look down
from a really
what's a few feet in front of you.
From a really practical perspective, right? I've my little boy, who's not so little anymore. He's, I haven't managed to get him to teach him how to ride a bike. I'm taking that. Because he's quite passionate about ice cream.
Or just stick him in front of a toy shop and say, here's the car. You're in the car park. You want to get to the front doors.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what you also do, of course, is hope that ice cream van moves. Because, as you're getting closer to it, it's, no, it's over there now. Because chain attack is okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look too closely in front of you, that's where you'll head. And I've always said that one of the challenges with entrepreneurs is they've got a horizon of 12 feet.
No, that's fascinating. So look, Nick, time is running short now, which is I can't believe how fast the time has gone. I've got another self-serving question, actually. Okay. Completely want to pick your brains here. So last year you were involved with Bristol Tech Festival, right? We don't think Somerset, Taunton's ever had one, and that's something that we would love to put on next year, probably post-pandemic, if there is such a thing. What tips have you got for us? Because I think we haven't begun to look at this, and it's something that could be quite exciting.
So, I mean, I think there are a number of ways to do it, and I'm hesitant to say this is how you should do it. But generally, my guidance would be not to over-engineer. What we did was to say we need to have something which creates a focal point for tech activity. And you could go and spend 200 grand running a big event, curated and managed, and make sure you've got a proper schedule of, we'll have some of this and some of that, and we'll have a space here, and we'll have a bar here, and all this good stuff. What our approach was, because this was me being lazy, was saying, okay, let's just put up a website with a means for any organization, a company, a university, whoever, to just say, we'll run an event. And it pops into the calendar. So all you're doing is aggregating other people's energy and events. And as long as you make sure that you've not got two things competing at the same time, and that they are related to, if your domain is Taunton or Somerset, make sure that it is the events, in a physical environment are physically in the location. So there is a thread, and you set some values, and of course you can accessibility and diversity, and we made a point. I'm not sure we always managed it, but don't have white male panels. You do need to do some stuff to lay down a bit of the law, and then just do it. And it cost us virtually nothing. We got the website done for free. We got a bit of sponsorship for a launch event and so on. I wasn't involved in the one that's just happened, so I can't really comment on that. But we did it in the physical, and a lot of events and a lot of people. So that style may work for you, or it may be
I think
smaller and focused on one place at one time is the starting point.
Yeah, I'm not saying Shane, you or I are lazy, but that style I think really works for us.
Well, I think for me, like it's a way to differentiate between what's described as a tech event and a tech festival. That the festival could be more sort of outside participation and small little sort of fringe events and micro events, and it's a bit like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, right? It's just a multitude of mini little things spread across a city, which is, you must have some kind of steering committee, but but it's the workload's distributed among as many people who want to be involved.
So we crowdsource the events. In essence.
As opposed to, like you said, the opposite to that is highly curated, highly expensive. It's a one-day thing. It all happens under one venue. It's very sort of focused, and the team is very focused. But there could be benefits of crowdsourcing. The only thing is, doing it in the centre of Bristol or in the centre of Bath. You've got there's a bit more going on, I guess, in the centre of Taunton,
and more venues, and
it could be interesting, could be worth looking at.
And I think there's a general rule, and this is for you and for anybody else thinking of how do you progress your own ecosystem. Is that it really isn't a one size fits all. Don't assume you can cookie cut. And have faith in what you know about what you need, where it is, where you are, and grow something. I'll use the word grow something that works. It's like growing you don't try. I'm not a horticulturist, but I'm going to make a fly here. You don't try and grow an apple tree in a desert. You grow a cactus. But if you have got fertile soil, then you grow the right thing for the environment. So understand the environment and grow the right.
I really like that. And Digital Taunton, was born out of being inspired by what's happening in Bristol and Bath, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And now we're feeling that trickle effect, that there are places that want to build communities inspired by the work of Digital Taunton.
Yeah.
And there's, it could be Exmoor or Bridgewater or Frome or whatever. So it's like there is this kind of trickle effect, but I definitely agree, when people have asked us for advice, it's very hard to give, very concrete black and white kind of answers, because it's, and we're learning this now. Jeremy and I thought perhaps, copy a lot of what's happening in Bristol and it would just magically work in Taunton. And I think we found out quite quickly that it's a different kind of place. It's a slightly different culture, different people, different businesses. So, I could definitely resonate with that.
And of course, you shouldn't expect to have all the answers. You become the convener and the facilitator and the conduit, but involve other people in building that momentum. Even if they're doing it, they have different views on how to do it. Remember that energy itself is useful, and trying to harness energy as well as the direction. There's probably an analogy between speed and velocity there, but let's not go there.
No, that's definitely good advice. I had one final question I wanted to end on about Nick's MBE. I wanted to ask some questions about that, but if there's any other questions you have,
no,
okay.
I'm good. I'm
well,
good.
I've never actually spoken to anyone, I don't think, that has received such an award. So I would love to just know, because I'm a techie guy, I love process. So, how did that happen? How did you find out? What was involved? I'm intrigued.
So you just get this letter out of the blue to say you've been nominated. Will you accept it? That's how it comes.
Do you know who it was that nominated you? Or?
There are a couple of people who I think may well have done.
Right.
But I've also been involved in nominating people.
Oh, I see.
So anybody, and I would encourage anybody to nominate somebody. It's not difficult. And what happens is that someone says, I think this person is worthy of an honour, and they fill in a form online on the government website, and say, and the guidance says, be as, what's the word they use? Superlatives. Use as many superlatives as you can. But you want to what are the different things that somebody has done well at and over and above. And then you get letters of support, say 3 or 4 letters of support endorsing it, and off it goes. But that can take 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
To get through. But of course, if multiple do it, it probably endorses it. And of course, there's the political dimension that some people will get an honour within 5 minutes of doing something.
Yeah.
But you know that you get this hierarchy of honours. I've got an MBE, which is near the bottom. MBE stands for my bloody efforts. OBE, which is the next one up.
There's others.
So in true entrepreneurial spirit, you're like, okay, all right, I'm going for the next one, right? It's you're aiming for Sir Nick, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to have, but it comes with a responsibility to share. It gives me a bit of profile, no doubt about that, and a bit of credibility. So it is my responsibility to use that to good effect.
And you've done that here, Nick. I mean, you've you're incredibly busy, as you've demonstrated, and you're incredibly influential. And every time we've picked the phone up to you, you've answered us. You've kind of just been so engaging, and you've obliged us 3 times. And that that true collaboration says a huge amount. And we're really grateful. We're really privileged to have you on the show.
I don't think there's an option. I think one has to share what one's learned.
Yeah.
As much as you can. So more than happy to continue doing so.
Oh, fantastic!
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Well, let's perhaps close it there. And I think there was lots of really interesting things to talk about there. So really grateful.
Really good chat.
Really good. And
we could probably go on
We
forever.
could just waffle all
actually.
day, couldn't we? Because obviously there's the work you've done at Number 10 as well, haven't you? You know, that was that a couple of years ago you were involved in something to do with central government, or
Painting the door. Yeah. I've been involved in a number of things at kind of national level to try and do the same thing, really, that I'm doing with you, which is to share and to shape as best I can.
Brilliant.
Oh,
well, you know what? We'll let you go now, Nick, and have a lovely weekend. Hopefully, we'll get to see each other in person in 2021.
I very much hope so, and best of luck.
Thank you. We'll let you know when this comes out way before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Take care. Thank you, Nick.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.